Oh yeah, we got ice. Welcome to part 2 of building your own ice machine, DIY homemade ice machine. It's been 5 days since we ran the electric and the water lines, and the cardboard that I laid down is bone dry. So we know the T's not leaking and the valve isn't leaking, the on-off, the quarter turn on-off valve, because this is all dry. Well, that's just dirty, but no leaking. But regarding the collar, you guys didn't stop me from messing up. Not really messing up, just wasting my time. When I was drilling the pocket holes, I drilled every one of the boards, and I didn't have to. You see, I only need to drill the short sides, because the short sides are going to go into the long side. If I run a screw through here, the long sides, it's going to shoot right out the end. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just wasn't thinking far enough ahead. But I'm not a carpenter. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I'm just a guy in the basement drinking beers and building stuff. Cheers. We'll start zipping this thing together. So this is what the put together collar looks like. Not too bad. I think it looks pretty good. Now we're going to work on getting the top off the cooler so we can give it the test fit. These are just held in by these covers. These just pop off. And then there's 4 Phillips head screws in here. This is how it's going to look when it's all finished. This is just mocked up. You know, it's not secured in any way. I just put it on top of the freezer and put the lid on. But it doesn't look too bad. It's a little funky, a little different. I like it. I've got the collar mocked up upside down on the lid. I had to change out this rear long piece because somehow I wound up ½ an inch short on that side. I don't know how I did that, but it's the back. It's not a big deal. Why I have it upside down is because there is this lip around the inner part of the lid, and it comes up maybe ½ an inch, 3/4 of an inch. I got to measure it and notch out the foam so the foam goes right up to the seal and still clears this. Now it looks like it's just over an inch. If I really wanted to be lazy or do it the easy way, I would just get a piece of 1-inch foam. Yeah, it's about 1.5 inches. So a 1-inch piece of foam would be perfect here. I might actually do that. 2 inches goes right to about here. I don't know. I gotta think about it. Executive decision. I'm gonna not use that 2-inch foam because it's just a whole lot of work to trim it down and notch it out to the way it's gotta be for probably not a whole lot of reward. So I'm gonna go to the store tomorrow and I'll get some 1-inch foam. I'm gonna start securing this. This looks pretty good now that I fixed that back edge. It sits straight on top. I'm gonna secure it with these angle brackets. 2 on each of the short sides, 4 on the long sides. Now I'm just gonna screw them right into the plastic here. There's no coolant lines or anything in there I really have to worry about. And then I'm gonna run a bead of caulk or silicone, whatever I've got. What do I have? Let's see what I've got. Let's see. Anything I can put in a caulk gun. What is this? This looks okay. If it's still good. Yeah, this will be fine, I think. Mold resistant. Perfect. Well, we're back at it. I attached the collar using these 90-degree brackets down all the sides. It's sturdy. Also went ahead and reattached the lid to the back. I was going to use wood screws to zip it in, but this pine, it's really, really soft. And I was worried over the long term that it might not last, that the wood screws might pull themselves out. I mean, this is only a 1/4 inch thick. So I went ahead and found some little machine screws in the junk drawer and some nuts and secured it that way. What we're gonna do now is run a bead of caulk along the base here, because I don't want any air. I want as little air escaping as possible. The foam that I bought is going to need to be cut to just about 5.5 inches. The heavy side of 5.5. I went and got some 1-inch foam, and I'm going to use that instead of the 2-inch foam. I think that's going to work a little better. I'll scrape out a little bit around these bolts, just make sure everything fits nice and tight. We'll glue it in with some PL. I've got this PL3. I don't know if it's still good. We might run into another problem like we did with the caulk, but we'll tackle that when we get to it. There we go. Beautiful. I like it. I've got this piece of foam glued, and I'm going to take this knife with 2x4, just like I did with this side, and slip it on down here and clamp it. That way I can spread the load out a little bit and make sure this gets a nice solid attachment to the board. This PL needs 24 hours to cure. Unfortunately, I'm leaving tomorrow on a trip, and I'm going to be gone for 3 days, so this is going to sit like this for the time being. However, what we can do is start plumbing in the filter and the ice makers, and maybe even start figuring out how we're going to mount things inside. So I'm going to go pull the filter out and the ice makers, and we'll get started on that. This is really the meat and potatoes of what you guys want to see, the actual hooking up of the water lines and the filter and the ice makers and whatnot. This is the filter we're going to use, and I'm going to trim this line just a little bit. It's a little long. So we're We're just gonna give it a clip. So this has a flow, it's directional. The arrow right here should point to the ice maker. So we're gonna screw this in the other side. Nice and tight. Now, this side, this brass fitting goes into the tube. And this is the plastic fitting that comes with the kit. It comes with a brass fitting if you're using copper, and it comes with a plastic fitting if you're using the plastic line. And supposedly, the tapered end, the angled end goes down towards the filter. So now we'll put that in there. I think that's in all the way. And we'll tighten this up with a 1/2-inch wrench. And that should be good. Now for the other side, we're using some regular braided line instead of plastic tubing or copper tubing. That's good. This stuff. And this will thread right into the fitting off of the filter. Okay. Now, we've got a T-fitting. We're just going to discard these brass fittings that are coming out because we don't need them. Not with these, at least. Now, these brass fittings, I mean these braided lines, these are going to go to the filters. I think compared to plastic, this looks a little better, a little more professional. Not that I'm professional by any means, obviously I'm not, you've been watching this. But it just looks a little better, I think. A little, I don't know, it gives it a little better quality. What do I know? So this is coming off the filter, and these two braided lines are going to be going to each of the water makers, the ice makers. Now let's give it a little water test. I'll put these in a bucket, and we'll just see if they leak anywhere. I've had this running for about a minute, and you see there's water coming out both hoses. Pretty good. I rewarded myself with a swig. I don't see anything leaking from either side of the filter, which is good. Now, they say you're supposed to run a couple gallons of water through these filters, so I'm going to let this run until this 5-gallon pail is about halfway, and then I'll dump it out. But it's really looking good. I'm not seeing any leaks. Not seeing anything leaking up here. I think the next thing we're going to try and do is crack open the ice makers and see what we can do about setting them in here. This is what comes with the ice maker kit. You get the ice maker itself, you get the water unit, and you get this tray, this ice tray, which we don't need. We're not going to be using that. And a couple bags of accessories, some tubes, some screws, some cable straps. The unit, the water unit, has these two prongs, and there's a signal that gets sent from the ice maker to the water unit that tells the unit when to turn on and shut off. When this gets full of water, this shuts off and stops the flow of water. As far as the wiring goes, it's your standard household wiring. White is neutral, black is hot, green is ground, and the brown wire is your signal wire. And that's going to go down to the water valve along with a neutral wire to tell the valve when to open, when to close, regulating the flow to your ice maker. I got some of this flat stock from Lowe's, and I know that these, at the top, from the front to the back, where this is going to rest, is 16¼ inches. So we're going to mark it and zip it. And that sits in there perfectly. I'm gonna have another one coming about here, coming across, and we're going to drop down the ice makers from those two brackets that we're making. I've got some pieces of metal cut. These are our cross members, and these we're gonna bend up and use as our hangers to hang the ice machines, the ice makers. This is what this setup looks like, all mocked up. And this is what it looks like in the freezer. Another day in the basement. I just got back from a 3-day trip, so I'm back now, and these have had plenty of time to dry. The PL should be set up pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and pop these clamps off. This all looks pretty good, pretty strong to me. I'm gonna pull these out temporarily so we can sand the foam down, and then we'll vacuum up the inside and clean it up real well. This really isn't going to be drinking ice, so I'm not too concerned with keeping this too clean. This is gonna be, ice you put fish in, you put drinks in. I'm gonna try and keep it clean as I can, but it's not really going to be drinking ice. If you're going to be using this ice for drinking, yeah, line the inside with something, maybe some plastic, some painter's plastic, and pick it up when you're done so you don't have anything in there contaminating your ice. The wiring for the ice makers is just your typical household wiring colors. White for neutral, black for hot, green for ground, and brown is the signal wire that gets sent down to the valve to tell it to open up and send water down up to the ice maker. So we're gonna replace that with some 16 gauge. This is 16 gauge. It looks a little thick for 16, but that just might be the insulation. It's actually labeled 18 gauge. But if you hold it up next to the 16 gauge, you can't really tell on the camera, but it's the regular 16 gauge is significantly smaller, but that's fine. We'll take a look when we open it up. I can't do all the wiring today. I'm waiting for some weatherproof connectors like this to come in the mail. They should be here tomorrow. These are like knockoff weather pack connectors. They're waterproof, weatherproof. They'll be fine inside the ice maker. But I need one that has 3 wires. And this, I need one that has 5 wires. This one's only got 3. Because I can do the 2 whites, the 2 blacks, and the 2 greens together. And then one of the signal wires from each unit, which I'm going to use blue and yellow. I don't have any brown, but to keep them separate and know which one's going where, I'm going to use blue and I'll use yellow for the other one. So we'll snip this stuff apart and start splicing together. So this actually looks like, and it is, it's double sheathed. That's why it looks so funky. You can see the step right here, and you can see the white inside the other colors. So that's why it's so thick. What we can do while we're waiting for the waterproof connectors to come in is route the water lines. And what I think I'm going to do is bring it up the side and kind of bring it high and then loop it down a little bit and then drill through. That way it's always got a downward angle. That way when the water shuts off, hopefully all the water will trickle down that downward slope and not really hang around inside the freezer to freeze and clog the lines. I did a little bit of modification to some of the brackets that came with these kits. Each of the kits comes with one of these brackets. I don't know exactly what it's for, but it fits. These two bits here fit just about perfectly into the cup that collects the water. So what I did was modify it a little bit, cut it with a little hacksaw, and pretty much cut it like that. This we're going to discard. This we can use. I'm going to try and do this one-handed. This fits in. It takes a little bit of force to push it in, not much. You just have to bend. You know, this will bend a little bit if you give it a little bit of force. And it acts like a cover. So now what I'm going to do is drill a little hole in the top, just a touch smaller than the tubing. That way it'll snug right up in there and it won't come popping out when the water pressure starts pushing it through. And this is where we're at right now, and I think this is where we're going to end it for the day. I've got these tabs that I had made. These little inserts that I modified from the original brackets, whatever they were supposed to be used for. And I've got the tubing securely in there. It's not coming in, it's lifting the whole thing. You see that? And I'll worry about taking care of this stuff tomorrow once I get some of the other electrical stuff coming in. And we're just going to run a loop up. You know, both of them are going to come up and shoot down the back. And we'll mount the solenoids, the valves, right about like that. Maybe one on the other side like this. But that's the gist of what it's going to look like. So catch up with me tomorrow. I got quite a bit done off camera this morning. I went ahead and really started tying everything together. I decided to move everything up onto the collar. One, I think it looks neater this way too. I just wanted everything off the floor. So I got the line coming into the filter. I got the water valves just about plumbed up. Got a power strip. Got the lines shortened a little bit and run. I was routing these, and while I'm doing it, I can see two potential problems that I'm gonna run into. The first being that if this acts the way that I want it to, when the water shuts off, anything that's left up here will trickle down into the bowl. I'm worried that might overflow the cup. The second problem is that if these hoses actually act like straws, in the sense that, and we've all tried this, when you put a straw into a glass of water and you hold your finger over the top and cap it, you take the straw out, but none of the water drips out until you move your finger, allowing air to vent into the top and take the place of the water. And if that's the case, and if the water just kind of stays where it is and doesn't trickle, then this water is definitely going to freeze. That's just something we're going to have to see with trial and error and running this thing and seeing how it works. Another thing I did was mount a fan. This is going to blow air right over these ice makers and hopefully make everything a little more efficient. What I'm doing here now is getting the wires ready to crimp and put them into these weather pack connectors, these waterproof, weatherproof connectors. I've already got the wires pretty much prepped. I've got them trimmed down, and I've got little grommets on the end for the connectors, so that's what creates that weatherproof seal. I got one done already. We'll go ahead and take care of the rest of them. Now, crimping these connectors does require either special dies or a special dedicated weather pack crimper. I have the dies. The outer crimp grabs the grommet and the insulation, and the inner just grabs the wire. Now these ones slide into the rears of the clip. These have more of a square. This is the female, basically. The female end and pin. This is the female pin, and this is the male pin. It's just, you know, kind of like a sword, just like a spike. But the female pin goes into the male connector. See? So this pin actually goes in here. I've got the hole drilled and the wires run through the back of the collar, and I drilled it a little big because I'm going to fill this with expanding foam to keep any air from leaking out. Now we're going to work on wiring this side of the connector. Now when we hook it up to the ice makers, it'll be white, black, green, yellow, blue. We've got everything wired up the right way. Everything matches. I did test fit this and it fit pretty snugly. It's tough for me to do with holding the camera. But that's what she looks like. Not bad. And unplugs when I want to take the ice makers out of the freezer. So now what we're going to do is pull the wires through a little bit, finish up the back. We're going to make a plug for the ice machine wires, and we also have to tap off of our neutral wire to send one to each of the water valves, and we can jump two together and then just have one running down to this wire. This is what the back of the freezer looks like now. It's a little bit of a jumbled wire mess. This is the wire and the plug for the fan, and this is just a three-way plug. Unfortunately, the plug repair end that I had bought to make this plug is too big to fit both of these side by side. This is a remote controlled outlet, and it has almost like a keyless entry for your car button, and I can turn that on and off without reaching around and trying to turn the switch on and off or unplug anything. I can just have this thing hanging next to the freezer and turn it on and off like that. This is the plug for the freezer itself. And this is three-way. I'm only gonna use one of these, but that's what that is. We're gonna cut this right around here. We're gonna leave the white wire alone because I've got a plan for that. And actually we're just gonna cut the green and the black wires right around here. Yellow is gonna go up to one of the valves, same with the blue. Your replacement plug, your repair plug, has the same wire and color codes as your household. So your green ground wire will go to the green screw. Your white neutral wire goes to the silver screw. Your black power wire goes to the brass screw. One thing you're going to probably miss, because I always do, don't forget to put the collar on the wire first if your repair plug has one. Because you will get everything wired up and screwed down and then realize you forgot to put this thing on. Now with these terminals, you can either loop it around the screw or you can sandwich it underneath this silver clip. So you'll feed it in to this slot right here and tighten down the screw, and you'll crimp down on the end of that wire. And that's how I prefer to do it. I think it's easier to get everything in there and set. The white wire we're going to do a little differently, because not only do we need a white wire going up to the ice makers, we need a white wire to go up to the valves. So we are going to put a white wire on each side of the terminal, each side of the plug here. Let's see if I have the dexterity to do the other side. Shorten that up. So that's what it's going to look like. And that is secure. This white one is good, that white one's good, the green is secure, and the black is secure. Now we can loosen up our collar and move it on down. Perfect. This is a jumper I started making to jump the two water valves together, because you don't need to run a separate neutral to each valve. You can jump the two together. So we're going to do that with these. I like uninsulated terminals and heat shrink, and that's normally what I would use, but these are going to be exposed. So I've got some clear insulation that slides over the top. So I'm going to skip the heat shrink and go right with two of these clear protectors. Now we'll plug one end of the jumper here, and the other end will go here. Perfect. Now this is pretty much what the back looks like finished. I think this is really all we have to do. I'm just going to shoot some expanding foam in the hole that I drilled for the wires. I already taped up the other side. And then we're going to have to run an extension cord down from the outlet in the ceiling to plug everything in. And for that, I'm going to use the same technique that I used putting the repair end on the ice maker wires as I am for this busted extension cord that I had to run over with a snowblower. So this is the finished product. I went ahead and changed this plug so it'll actually fit beneath the plug for the fan, and I don't have to have this big heavy three-way hanging down. Got the valves wired, got everything plugged in, got the fan hooked up, got the ice makers hooked up. We've got power, so we're going to turn on the power to the power strip. I can hear the compressor running. I've got the remote control for the remote control plug. And if I turn that on, we should see the fan start spinning. There that goes. So that's got power to the fan. It's got power to the ice makers. All we have to do is turn on the water. We got water going down here to the filter. The valves are hooked up. They should be pumping water when this thing gets the temperature. Power's on, it's running. We're cranked it up to 7, but the alarm light is on. So I wonder what that's all about. Bad news, everybody. I went down to the basement this morning. The first thing I noticed was that the alarm light is still on, which is fine, because if I dial this down to 6 or so, I mean, I just had the door open a little bit, but yeah, if I dial it down, it goes off, which means it's cooling. But the big problem that I saw is that we've got water everywhere. The top's full of water. There's water down the back. So I'm going to dry some of this off so it doesn't run off the back of it. But we did make ice. So we do have some ice down there. But also, these lines are frozen. And I've got water there, you know, you can see it now. I got water in the ice in the corner. I've got big ice here. I don't know what the heck happened, but something's not good. And I'm gonna have to do some digging and figure out what the heck's going on here. Well, it's the evening now. It's dark outside. I spent most of the day tinkering with the freezer, and I'm happy to report that we got her to do a 180, and seems to be working great. We changed around some of the plumbing a little bit. The problem was we were having this 1/4-inch tubing go all the way in, and it was freezing up and icing up inside, causing too much pressure, and water was squirting out the outlets here, all over the shelves, all over the floor. You saw the puddles before. But she seems to be working all right now. I got her dialed back to about 6 because I don't want to see the light. If I crank it up to 7, it just runs and runs and doesn't go away. Keep it at 6, I don't have to see that. And she's cooking at about -5. Got the fan going, we got ice down there, we made some ice. And we got some more ice in the tray, ready to pop. Nothing's frozen up. This is the change I made. Instead of having the 1/4-inch tube coming through, the kit comes with these tubes with the U-channel in it, and there's a little frozen ice in there, but I don't think it's that much. I mean, it's flowing down, it's not freezing up. I'll just have to keep an eye on it. But we're making ice, and we're making good temperature. I think we're doing pretty good. So I'm just gonna sit back and relax and have this one. It's about 2 weeks in the making. And we finally got her done. Cheers. We've had the cooler running for about 3 days now. I just wanted to give you guys an update to end this video with. She's running about -8, and we've got ice out of it. So we're looking good.